Evolve ensure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Zach, and Raj.
Hey there.
Hey.
Today we got your Week 20 preview. We are in the midst of trade deadline stuff is going on. And so we're going to have more of that as it trickles in. But right now we're just looking at Week 20, some storylines, some injuries, all that jazz. If you guys want to find us, we're on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We are in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. Who's hurt?
Bad vibes. Well, first we'll start out with just bad vibes for being out because you suspended Erik Cernak. 2 games for, an elbow to the head on Kyle Okposo. Okposo was trying to, just dip by him, and Cernak was trying to grab a piece of him, stuck out his elbow, and got him in the face pretty good. Don't get me wrong, it was an elbow, but some of these suspensions are a little much. I don't know. It to me, it wasn't super intentional to warrant a 2-game suspension, but they seem to be cracking down on those kind of things a lot more this year. Did either of you guys see the hit?
Yeah, it looked pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It was happening so fast, too.
I mean, he ducked back inside. He was trying to get a piece of him. I just don't think it was, intentional to try to hurt him. That's all I'm getting at. Spencer Knight also out indefinitely while he receives care through the NHL Player Assistance Program. He had actually gotten sent down to the NHL last week.
AHL.
And he has been having a rough go of it this season. Not been the guy we kind of hoped that he would be. Let's be honest, I think we were all kind of hoping that he would take that next step and split shares. And I think that Florida was hoping for that too. They wanted to see him split shares with Bobrovsky this year, and that hasn't happened. I think he has I think his record is right around 500, which, isn't awful, but not what they're expecting in Florida with the kind of firepower they have. But in general, wish you luck, bud. Hope you get it figured out. Come back, be good again. Alexander Barkov. We've been talking a lot about Barkey lately. He is out with a hand injury. Supposedly, he actually sustained this about 3 weeks ago. It was I forget the exact day, but it was February 4th or something. They even set a specific day. But back in the beginning of February, he sustained a hand injury. He's been playing with it this whole time, and now he's going to be missing a couple of games because of it. I guess it's just lingering. Then you also had to imagine that they had, they just have Sam Bennett still out. Those are the top 2 centers in Florida. That's going to mix things up. And I mean, if there's any time that, come on. I feel like Eetu Luostarinen, think about it. Anybody else on that train, I at least noticed he's got to be that top line center.
Well, he's been red hot.
Is he going to do anything? Or not top line, but I mean, he is playing with, he's playing with Tkachuk. I know that. He's in between Tkachuk and Verhaeghe. That's a good line. That's a good spot to be.
Absolutely thriving there, too. So it's not born out of necessity or anything. But you look at Florida, man. They're 5th in the wild card race. That is tough sledding. 29, 26, and 6. They're behind the Islanders, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Detroit. That's what kind of season Florida's having right now. If anybody hasn't been really keen to it, they are getting caved in when they're on the road. 13, 17, and 3. They're 16, 9, and 3 at home. So it's just, they have got to do something. They are not going to take their time with these injuries. So I expect them back as soon as possible.
On one hand, they haven't been amazing this season, but on the other hand, like you said, they got to do everything they can just to get into the playoffs. So it could be a good time to pick up those types of players. It's a gamble, obviously. If you're not playing with Barkov, that's gonna make things a bit tougher. But on the other hand, you get those extra minutes on a team that's still pretty good and trying to make the cut. So I think those fringe guys like E2 and Verhaeghe and that are great picks. I mean, I guess Verhaeghe's not really a fringe guy. Finally he's up to 75%. But I think those fringe guys, it is a good time to maybe, if you're on the cusp of making the playoffs, to me, these are the kind of guys that you want to pick up because it's an all or nothing, right? They're either going to flop without Barkov or just totally thrive. So I think some of these guys could work out amazingly.
Yeah, we're getting into that time of the year that Zach always likes. Like, you pick up players who are, their teams are making push for the playoffs because they're going to be playing that much harder, that much more offensive. And
I do.
Florida's going to be one of those teams.
Though, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if you think about it, it really is true. There's teams that are, if teams are coasting, they're going to be, maybe sitting players that you have on your team. They're just going to screw you for your playoffs. Or there's teams that are like really working hard because they're right on the cusp. So everybody is just trying to play as hard as they possibly can. And that helps you. It's just, it actually happens. So, I don't know. Yeah, I am a huge fan of that. Last up, we got a couple guys on IR here. Alex Tuck was placed on IR. And then our boy TK, Travis Konecny. That sucks, TJ.
Yep.
But it is what it is. It's almost like they're trying to lose.
Well, I mean,
and then you also have
doing a good job of it.
Out for Philly as well.
They're doing a good job of it. They got caved in by New Jersey.
Oh my
yesterday.
God! 7 to friggin'
nothing.
7-0.
Samuel Ersson was having such a good start to his season, and he went 6-0-0, first time that ever happened, and had a chance to go 7-0-0, but instead it goes 7-0, and they lose the game.
He misread the memo on that one.
So that top line spot that was Alex Tuck's is now Kyle Okposo's, who, I bet on that one being Jack Quinn or Victor Olofsson, but I guess they like those middle six lines, those middle two lines rather. So those will stay together. Kyle Okposo isn't somebody I'm super interested in. Like, that is maybe the least attractive outside of Vinny Hinostroza, who was just called up today. He might be the least attractive name to play that top line right wing spot. So hopefully that cycles a little bit more, but here we are.
Yeah, I kind of forgot he was still in the league, to be honest.
Hinostroza or Okposo?
Okposo.
Both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get into storylines. Let's talk about the Bruins trade here. Garnet, Hathaway, and Dimitry Orlov to the Bruins. There's not a ton of, big fantasy impact. What with these players changing, Garnet, Hathaway, I think is still going to bang, and Orlov is still going to be, a stand-up defenseman with decent periphery. Mm-hmm. What's interesting to me, unless you guys have any differing opinion, bangers are going to bang no matter what jersey they have on. And Orlov is kind of that. He's just that guy. He's going to be good defensively. He's not taking the power play from anybody, I don't think, and that's it. But the Capitals, they get Craig Smith, who I think could be really cool. He lined up on the second line, which was still pretty interesting, versus that top line where, we probably see Tom Wilson solidified there. They get a bunch of picks to go with it. What do you think they do with the power play there? Because they've been mixing it up a little bit in Washington. Dylan Strome getting some power play time. They're back to pretty much the vintage power play with Oshie, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Ovechkin, and right now Gustafsson. But every once in a while they throw Dylan Strome up there. Do you think there's a chance of Craig Smith getting a look up there?
Number one, Gustafsson is getting some good points lately. He's actually been playing well and looks good on that top power play. I'm thinking that's he's power play too.
Yeah,
all the way.
All right.
That's just what I think. I don't see them changing up that top power play just for the sake of doing it. And in all honesty, I even had down here, would Craig Smith be a chance at a top line? And I don't think so. I think you're right. I think it's Tom Wilson that stays there. If he's lucky, maybe you'll see second line time as opposed to Marcus Johansson being on that right side. It's not like Craig Smith really can move around the lineup. He can't change wings. He is not great at faceoffs when he does have to take them. So you're not going to see him, ever play in that center spot. And in all honesty, they're pretty heavy on the right side already, as far as I think. But that's if TJ Oshie is playing well, which he did last night, actually.
Yeah. His time on ice suggests that he was the second line center. So even as it stands, Craig Smith playing with Backstrom and Connor Sherry on line 3.
You know what? I think this is a real win-win trade, actually. I do like it for both teams.
Yeah.
Except Garnet Hathaway goes from one fourth line to another. Like, I feel bad.
Yeah, he can do.
He's good at that.
But man, he's a Bruin. Like Washington is a pretty rugged team, but Boston, I think both of those guys are great Boston players, and I think Washington got back what they need. And like, honestly, I think Washington, as much as we like Hathaway, I think you can let him go without like ruining your team or anything. So I think I like it.
That was a tough one. Is Orlov? Both teams kind of made out because Boston's making a push, and teams that are legitimately making a push for the cup, they don't need those first round picks because you're trying to win now. So it was good for Washington to get what they got.
Agreed.
I
think
take
the
like
picks
one
were
step
huge.
back. Picks were really good. And I think, Boston gets exactly what they need to push them over the top. But what I'm worried about is Darcy Compher here. He's already below 500. And does this mean that Washington has taken themselves pretty much out of it? If they're poising themselves as sellers, if they're posturing themselves as like being done for the year, what do you think that happens with Compher? He's taken volume, and he's just not exactly, he's not holding it down. And you still don't have John Carlson. He's supposed to be getting reevaluated, in the next few days or so. So we don't know what's happening there. And yeah. So I don't know. What's you guys take on Compher as they lose their number 1D in a trade?
I think it's a soft tank. Like, they're not going to tank, but also Ovi's like dealing with that super emotional loss of his father, right? Which he was super close. So, with all things considered, Carlson out, Ovi kind of probably not 100% for the rest of the year. I think they're just kind of saying, pick up the picks while we can. I don't think they're going to totally tank because they're too good to totally tank, but I don't think they have any design on going anywhere. So I think that's rough for goalies for sure. I think it's kind of rough for everybody. You'll see a guy like TJ Oshie who just plays the way he plays and now doesn't really have to care as much. He's a decent pickup at the moment, but I think Washington in general is going to kind of just meh their way into the end of the season and try to pick it up again next year.
Man, I don't know what to make of it. But yeah, Eric Gustafsson, like you were saying, Zach, he's 48% roster. He's got 6 assists in his last 5 games or something like that. Maybe it's 8 assists in his last 7, and 5 of them are from the power play. So he is playing really well. If you need D, he's available in half the leagues. All right, we got a bunch of other storylines to get to. Kasperi Kapanen placed on waivers by Ron Hextall, and then St. Louis claims him. He's going to be playing in St. Louis. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah.
It's surprising, and when Pittsburgh was talking, well, I guess Ron Hextall was talking about Kasperi Kapanen, it was just this, we just couldn't figure out a way to maximize his potential. Kasperi Kapanen's a really good player. The fact that they just gave him up for nothing, has to do something with, I don't know, do you think it has to do with money? Do you think it has to do with personality? I don't really understand the whole thing.
No, it had to have been money.
I think to give him up for nothing is just craziness.
Yeah, I don't know. It had to have been money, but their top 6 is locked in, so I wonder, I don't know, you got Brock McGinn, Jeff Carter, Danton Heinen as your third line. Kasperi Kapanen could be an improvement there, but I don't know. It had to have been a money transaction.
Yeah.
Looking at St. Louis kind of arming up, on the bottom, going from the bottom up.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's top 6 is what it is. Kapanen, to me, to be useful, kind of has to be inside of the top 6. He's not really he's not a bottom 6 type. So sort of like that Phil Kessel situation, right? Where he's good, but it's just not what they need. They definitely need D. So hopefully that's what they're doing.
Next up is the Patrick Kane saga. He got the day off. Yesterday for a period of reflection.
Oh my God!
Rangers just heavily rumored to be the one in on this. Just seconds after adding Vladimir Tarasenko as well. This top six,
It wouldn't be fair. Just wouldn't be fair.
if they make that happen, the top six of what? Kreider, Zibanejad, Kane, Panarin, Trocheck, Tarasenko. That is a mean top six. And that begs the question, where is the West in any of this? Like, we're watching Toronto, Boston, the Rangers arming up, New Jersey and Carolina. Up until today, I guess Pierre LeBrun put out a tweet that Carolina's out on Timo Meier. The only two teams left on that one are Vegas and Jersey. And if Jersey makes that, I mean, that's another West or East team that's just getting stronger. The Rangers, they placed Lecision on waivers, and they traded Vitaly Kravtsov to your team, Raj, Vancouver. What do you make of that one? Vitaly Kravtsov.
Pointless. It's absolutely pointless. I had a big discussion on Twitter about this yesterday. Like, there's nothing wrong with him, but the Canucks don't need a forward reclamation project at this point. Like, who, if everything works out, they get a player that they don't need in the end after putting a bunch of time into it. So he's fine. The deal was fine. Like, it's a fair trade, but it's kind of like, it's just dessert when you already got dessert. They've needed D for a friggin' decade, and they keep picking up possible middle six forwards. So it's not that the trade was bad or anything. It's just completely the wrong thing. It's the opposite of what Pittsburgh just did. They've got a guy like Kapanen who's decent, but they don't need him. Get rid of him. It's a waste of space. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with Kapanen. Similar to Mikheyev, it's just horrible management here. But it's clear. I mean, when you look at guys like Ethan Bear, OEL, anybody who knows how to play any kind of defense, they're saying is injured and taking them out of the lineup. Like, we're in full Bedard mode. So, good trade. I feel bad for the guy. Like I said, if everything goes well, he comes into an already overcrowded forward situation. So,
Well, I mean, they're going to be strong up and down. Even if they're not like overpowered up and down, they'll still be strong up and down. I don't mind it so much. Let's see what happens. I mean, that Horvat and Beauvillier, they're both up to 7 points. Horvat's done it in 8 games. Beauvillier's done it in 7. So that one's looking pretty good at face value as it is. So.
Nah, it's not at all. It's.
I mean, yeah, you obviously want Horvat in that situation, but as of right now, you're at least treading water.
And I don't want to just spend all day on the Canucks, really, but it's the Toffoli situation, right? You put someone on Miller's wing, they get a point per game, end of story. It doesn't really matter who it is. Everybody who they put there goes point per game. So the fact that you lost Horvat to do it, Horvat was basically top of the league when you put him in that position. So he's managing to stay point per game on the Islanders, which kind of shows you the difference in the two players, right?
Raj, we kind of all had a bad night last night. We got a touchdown put on us, and you had a goalie score against you.
At least it was a highlight of some kind.
All right, next up, Nashville trades Nino Niederreiter to Winnipeg. And typically, I mean, at first I was like, okay, whatever. But then I looked at Winnipeg's top 6 with Perfetti out, and there's room in there for Nino in the top 6. And we could be looking at Connor Scheifele and Niederreiter, Ehlers, Dubois, and Wheeler. We have to be interested in Nino Niederreiter at this point, just for fantasy. What do you guys think?
I am personally always down to pick up an offensive style player going to a new team because, they're not going to have to deal with too many X's and O's, and it's just, hey, go out there and try to score points. When it comes to goalies and stuff like that, it gets a little trickier. But offensive style players going to new teams, let's be honest. How many times have you seen they come out and, score a whole bunch of points in the first couple of games? Then you can trade them, do with what you will. All of a sudden, it seems like their stock goes up. Take advantage of that. So, yes, I'd always rather be the guy that picks up and finds out. I'd rather be the guy that drops than the guy that wished they picked up, as I always say.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think this is going to be good. If he steps right into the top line, then, I mean, you're right along with Connor and Scheifele, who just can't stop scoring goals. That's going to be a strong line. It's always good for a stream.
Love it.
Timo Meier. Carolina's apparently out, so I wonder what Carolina's going to be doing. Nick Schmaltz apparently rumored around them, but we'll see what they have in store. Timo Meier, right now it's Vegas and New Jersey are rumored to still be the ones. I'd love to see him in New Jersey. Not as a Flyers fan, but as a fantasy fan. I think he could work there.
Jeez.
Put him on Jack Hughes' wing. Come on. That'll be fun.
That's exactly what I said right before you signed on today. Jack Hughes and Timo Meier. And I didn't remember how I thought Timo Meier was older than he is. He's still relatively young, right? Like he's kind of in his prime. So to me, that makes more sense.
Perfect pickup.
Makes more sense than Kane going to New Jersey, right? Because Kane's obviously awesome, but at the end of his career, Meier's just right in his prime. I would love that.
You got some runway with Timo Meier. Definitely. You always hate to lose your top prospects, but they have a couple that they can probably spare at this rate.
Well, that's what I was saying to Raj before we even started recording. You'd have to imagine that with the amount of young talent that New Jersey has, San Jose would want players back. You know what I mean? Good young players that they can build the future around as opposed to, draft picks and shit. And New Jersey has those, but it would be awful to see, like, I don't know, a Dawson Mercer go.
Yeah. Or a Holtz. Like, I'd love to see Holtz stay.
That's who I would want if I were
yeah.
San Jose.
All right, that is just about it. The last one is that Cam Talbot could apparently be on the block. Vegas, Buffalo, Calgary, and one other team, I can't remember who, is rumored to be in on him potentially. So we'll see what happens with him. Buffalo would be strange because they already have 3 goalies that they're kind of riding. Comrie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Craig Anderson. At this, like, why would they add Cam Talbot? I don't know. So let's see what happens. Vegas makes a bunch of sense because their goalies have been going down nonstop. Think back even to Robin Lehner, who's been out all season. Yeah. I wonder if they make a play
and
for
all
him.
of their backup goalies that they have now that they've been slotting in and out back and forth, they're all question marks next season as far as the cap hit goes. Like, they're all up for contracts, whether they want to keep who they want to keep and how it's going to go. But everybody except for their top goalie, is on an expiring contract.
That just adds to the drama. Moving into the week preview segment of the portion here, we got the week standout. So who stood out to you, Raj, last week?
Oh man, Max Domi. He's come up. I mean, he's come up as much as anybody on the show this year. He's actually more points than Patrick Kane at this point in only a couple more games. Like, Kane kind of has been making his push to go to the Rangers last week, where he scored all of the points. But Domi had 10 points in his last 4 games playing with Kane. He's 41% rostered, so he's actually available. And as long as Kane's on his wing, like I posted on Twitter the other day, like, is there anybody more worried about that trade than Max Domi? Because he is benefiting like he definitely doesn't deserve. But right now, man, he's going on these bursts of 3-point nights, 4 or 5-point nights at bunches. So yeah, he had a great week. Pettersson had 9 points in 3 games. Just so I don't cry, I'll say that out loud. But he's been doing very well too. Obviously, you're not going to get him.
I like it. I've been liking me some Crash Test Domi this year.
Crash system.
Nice.
So I had JT Compher, who we have later in the episode. He's 35% rostered, and he's got 8 points in his last 3 games. 2 goals, 6 assists, playing on a line with Mikko Rantanen. Colorado's got a good schedule coming up this week. Zach did have him in the docket first, so I need to say that. So if anybody's copying anybody, I guess I'm the one that's copying. But I'm looking at JT Compher as somebody who stood out to me this week that you can go out and pick up.
You can't hate him. It's that line. It's that line. You're playing with Mikko Rantanen, and he's also a good player just in general. Like, JT Compher is on some shit. He is on some shit. I went with Dawson Mercer. I can't not love him. He's so good. 4 goals, 1 assist this week. He had 3 goals and an assist when I wrote this stuff. And then he scored a goal last night again against my boys. But he's only 24% owned. That is now up to a 6-game point streak. So what I had said, that was just this week. But now he is on a 6-game point streak dating back to last week, where he now has 8 goals and 2 assists in that span.
After the shellacking of the Philadelphia Flyers. Yeah, that's a big one. All right, schedule breakdown. It is your normal week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. as your off nights, and they're good off nights too because you have a pretty good slate. It's just like 5 games, 6 games, 5 games, 5 games. So it's not, 1 game, 2 game, any of that jazz. But Tuesday, Thursday, 10 games. So you might have some wiggle room there. And Saturday, typically the heaviest has 12 games. Best schedules here. Detroit's got 5 games, but only 2 off nights. So I don't know. Like there are some good schedules behind that, like 2 off nights. So this is a good talking point here. Do you guys prefer volume of games or volume of off nights? Because we got Vegas, Edmonton, the Avalanche, and the Coyotes, who have 3 off nights, and then Vegas has got 4 games, 4 off nights. So, like, would you go for Detroit for the 5 games, or would you go Vegas, Edmonton, Colorado, or Arizona for the 3 off nights, even 4 off nights?
I take the cheap answer and say you got to both. You need to kind of mix and match, right? Because if you have all of your players on off nights, and all of a sudden you've turned them into not off nights for your team. So I think it's a good idea. If someone has 5 games, it makes sense to try to get somebody from that, just so you have 5 games out of one streamer spot. But I think it's important to mix and match, right? Because I was talking to a guy from another league last week about exactly this, where I was just telling him, like, look, you're trashing your team just to get off nights. And in the end, like, I think the guy had made three moves and gained 1 game played in the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, because he was getting off nights, but off nights are only useful and valuable if you're benching guys on the heavy nights, right? Because a game played is a game played. So if you're not full on your heavy nights, don't worry about off nights. You know what I'm saying? So I love off nights, and I think we all do, but you do have to be reasonable with it, right? It's like a game played is a game played, and that's ultimately what matters.
I don't know. Like if we're talking streamers here, I don't see, clogging up an off night, adding 1 or 2 players, on your off nights. Adding 1 or 2 players, I don't think we're benching anybody, unless, of course, you're stacked all the way up on these guys that are playing off nights.
And it wouldn't even be so much that you're gonna be full on an off night, but if you're moving a guy who was playing on a heavy night just to pick up an off night, your games played are still the same, right? So it's only worth it if you're gaining games played, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, let's get into let's finish off the best schedules here. So that 5 game, 2 off nights, that's Detroit. 4 games, 4 off nights. Vegas, 4 games, 3 off nights. Edmonton, Avalanche, Arizona, and 4 games, 2 off nights. Still pretty good streaming schedule. Seattle, Montreal, Dallas, the worst schedules. The Islanders have got to be the worst because they only play 2 games and both on busy nights. The Flyers and Capitals also only 2 games. Tips of the week, Zach, take us into that one, man.
I kind of alluded to it earlier. My big thing this week is staying on top of these trades and being aware. Like I said, I truly am. I'm all for being the guy that picks someone up when it happens, see how it works out, and drop him if it doesn't. So I'm keeping an eye on all the trade deadline stuff. Your shares in certain players could rise, and then they're going to think about ROR. You know what I mean? Think about Ryan O'Reilly. What he was worth before that trade as to the guys that picked him up, and you might have to make the decision, do I want to keep a Ryan O'Reilly? Do I want to trade him for his, exorbitant value right now that wasn't there when I picked him up? So you're still getting that come up. And that's kind of the thought that I want to stick around is I'm looking at this trade deadline and I'm watching these players. And if I have room for a player, then I'm going to pick up that guy and I'll let somebody else wish they did.
My tip of the week, I'm looking at Detroit, Ottawa to start. Even Chicago and Boston, they play back-to-backs on Monday, Tuesday. And then I also got New Jersey and Carolina to end the week because, we're going to get into our week-long streamers later on. And I almost like Dawson Mercer and Seth Jarvis from Jersey and Carolina more than I like some of these week-long guys. So if you could get somebody from Detroit, look at Bertuzzi, Perron, Girard, Fabry, and then maybe someone from Ottawa if you can't find anybody from Detroit. The only person I really like in Ottawa is Shane Pinto. And then move over to like a Dawson Mercer or a Seth Jarvis. that would be what I would do. I would make a swap midweek.
The good old 2 weeks and 1 week, splitting them up. What you got, Raj?
Happy weeks. Well, I'm just going to copy you, essentially. I just wanted to piggyback. I mean, sometimes certain things make sense, and on a rare day, we all agree sometimes. But yeah, I mean, the trade deadline's obviously the big news of the moment. And it sounds like my takes are my usual lukewarm water takes where, you do want to watch the trades, but you also have to keep in mind that 9 times out of 10, nothing happens from the trades. Forget who we were talking to last year. Somebody actually gathered up the stats on it, and it's more often than not after a trade, players actually dip a little bit. So especially if you're trying to get into the playoffs right now, what you end up doing is missing a game or two while the trade's taking place and the guys are physically moving teams. And then it can often take a couple of games to get into it. So now all of a sudden you've lost almost 2 weeks because most of the trades are teams who aren't worried about getting into the playoffs, who are trying to figure things out. So, you want to keep an eye on that, but you don't want to freak out and get the guy who's going to the new team because, I mean, even O'Reilly the other night, right? Like he had 4 points in one night, but he also hasn't scored in any other game on Toronto yet. So that was a brilliant game. And if he did happen to get O'Reilly, I'm sure he's going to be amazing on Toronto. I mean, how can you not in that top 6? If you have any talent and you're in that top 6, it's you're valuable. But I don't see him getting another 4-point night. And like you were just mentioning, if you did happen to pick him up already, I would trade him right away after that 4-point game while people are all hot and bothered. And just don't ruin your team for the playoffs just because you get excited about, some guy going to the third line of Pittsburgh or something like that.
Oh, I'd turn it upside down for Brock McGinn. All right, Raj, you're next up here with these long-term. Did you roll right into that with your?
Well, I kind of rolled that point into my long-term holds. Just it's basically the same point, like.
Got you. All right.
So some of your holds that would normally be holds might not be like. I guess it's more of a tip than a hold option, but you gotta shorten all your leashes if you're on the verge of getting into the playoffs. Somebody's cold, you just got to deal with it and move on, because if you need points now, who cares what happens in a month from now, right? So just on your holds, I mean, a guy like O'Reilly, if you have him, great, hold him, unless you can work, if you could still make a trade at this point. But it's a whole new season, right? The last couple of weeks of the season, or you have to treat like a whole new season compared to everything else that's happened. So just watch what you're doing, basically.
I got my long-term hold suggestion as Mikael Backlund, 42% rostered right now. Man, he just hasn't slowed down. We've been talking about him here and there. I know Zach's a huge fan, so we've been talking about him for, close to a month, even 2?
9 years.
We've
been talking about Mikael Backlund for 9 years.
Yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, I mean, Backlund's doing everything. He's shooting over 3 times a game. He's got 14 points in his last 11 games. There's no reason we shouldn't be holding him. He's been, pretty much riding tit for tat with Toffoli on goals for about a month now. Gotta get in on this one. He's playing really well. He's getting more time on ice than most of the forwards out there. Actually, probably more than any of the forwards now that I look at it. Elias Lindholm 1808, Backlund 1819. So please get in on Mikael Backlund. My drop is going to be Owen Power at 46%. He's got 3 points in his last 10. He's shooting less than twice a game. He's got 2 hits, 6 blocks. All right, fine. 4 points in his last 11 games. 2 hits, 6 blocks in the 10 before last night. And, I get it. Buffalo has a nice playoff schedule and everything, but it's painful to be rostering. Like, we're talking about Eric Gustafsson, who's just 2% more rostered. And there are other D out there that I'm more interested in, who are more lowly owned than Owen Power.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, it seems really strange. Let me look. So I'm sorting by the last 30 days, looking at defensemen. Like Michael Matheson is 17% rostered and outperforming Owen Power. Ryan Graves is outperforming Owen Power and is 24% rostered. And this is just on the first page. Sam Girard, Zach, who you have later on.
Yes.
Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
Who I have next.
Yeah, there you go.
He said next.
All right. Yeah, there's a bunch of D out there who are like Owen Power just seems like a perfect person to turn into a streamer spot because it does feel like a waste.
At the same time, and I 100% agree with you, but we do have to think about the fact that, I didn't even think that we were going to be talking about Owen Power in a fantasy sense at all this year. So the fact that he even is, we're having this conversation, I think is great news about Owen Power.
That's wonderful for him and his agent and the team and everything. But for fantasy, I don't think it's he's exactly the guy that I was talking about essentially in my last point, right? Where like you got to drop that. That's exactly who you got to drop at this point. If Dynasty, different story, obviously, but
yeah, if it's super deep league where D are hard to come by, but it's still like, Trevor Van Riemsdyk outperforming, I don't know.
Well, and it's not like you're waiting for friggin' John Carlson to return or something, right? Like he's going to return and maybe be okay if he gets his shit together. Not worth it. Totally not worth it.
And 46% is that's a decent amount,
That's close to
it really is.
League,
Yeah, that's a decent amount. So that's a lot of people that have him out there on their team, and you're not really getting too much for him. But yeah, so like I said, I have Sam Girard. He is my number one hold. Well, actually, no. JT Compher would be my number one hold. I think we all agree with this JT Compher thing. Yeah. But I like Sam Girard too, and I like these D men from the Avalanche while Cale Makar is out. Honestly, I think that Sam Girard was, even worth a pickup before Makar went out, but now he's even more so. Sam Girard only 32% owned and has been playing very well, especially since Makar's been out. Then again, Bowen Byram has as well, but he's a lot more owned. Sam Girard is a guy that he looked great in the game last night too. He almost had a tip-in deflection goal, got stopped. But it's the idea of watching that kind of thing and saying, hey, that's a really good play. Next time you do that very well may be a goal. And that's why I love watching the hockey games, because you can see that kind of thing and say, I know it didn't work this time, and you didn't have that point on your shelf this time, but that was a really good idea. However, he did have 3 blocks and a hit last night, so he's also a guy that's always going to get you something. I like Sam Girard. As far as my drop goes, I think this one's pretty easy. I got Ondrej Palat here. While he is 27% owned, which honestly I think is still too high, ownership has definitely dropped way down in the past couple of weeks, and I think that if you were an Ondrej Palat owner, you should be part of it.
I always love it when you say Ondrej Palat, because there's that secret S that nobody sees. It's always fun. I love when we talk about it. All right, streamer suggestions. The teams we're looking at:
hate on me.
Detroit,
Montreal,
Vegas, Edmonton,
Canadian.
Colorado, Arizona, Seattle, Montreal, Dallas. Raj, why don't you take us into your first streamer of the week?
Well, I'll preface my all three by saying I hate them all, and it's one of those weeks where I don't like my guys. But David Perron.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Evgeny Dadonov goes to the Dallas Stars for Denis Gurianov.
Oh, wow.
Denis Gurianov is now a Montreal Canadian, and hopefully he can get some top 6 time. For the love of God, please.
For the love of God, let the boy
Shoot.
It's so weird though, because honestly, I've always kind of felt that Gurianov and Dadonov, they're like the same person. Like, I'm pretty sure they are the same person. That person just flies in between these two cities, and they're playing the same guy. Like, I'm pretty sure they're the same person.
Just talented and disappointing, basically. I think all three of us hoped and thought maybe Gurianov would be something, but he's just, hasn't worked out.
That change of scenery. Hopefully it works out. I still have some love for the kid.
And who knows? I mean, Montreal is obviously just in full tank, so it wouldn't be outrageous for them to improve a lot next year when everybody starts playing and trying. And they got lots of good young talent there. There's lots of holes, but lots of good young talent.
Easier to be a big fish in Montreal, I think, than Dallas.
Yeah, for sure. Back to even more boring, but David Perron, it's 45%. His stats haven't been great. They've been okay. 7 points in his last 10. But he was brought in for the power play. He still plays on the power play. He's honestly, if your team has power play point bonuses, which most leagues do, Perron's useful right now, especially with the 5 games. But if you don't count power play points, then he loses a lot of value. But he still is good. Like I said, he's just under point per game lately. Detroit's sort of doing better than they were. Like I said, 5 games, good player. You know what you're getting. I think he's worth a shot right now. He's also second on the team in shots on goal, so he's always putting shots on goal. He's good chance power play points, but just a streamer, obviously, not someone to hold for the rest of the season.
All right, I'm going to start. I wanted JT Compher here, but I'm going to pick my own. I'm going to go with trusty old Nick Schmaltz, who just continues to be over point per game, but yet cannot break 35% ownership, which, again, is baffling, as I say every single week. But he's rumored to be on the move. Carolina maybe being someone that Elliot Friedman reported as being a good fit. I'm not sure where he would fit in Carolina, but as long as he stays in Arizona, it's better to be a medium fish in a small pond than a medium fish in a big pond. I like him in Arizona, where he can continue to thrive offensively. He's got 8 goals, 5 assists in his last 10 games, and just keeps on schmaltzing.
I am going with JT Compher, and it's okay. Like, you can choose JT Compher too. I am all for it.
Well, like I said before we went on, the fact that both of us wanted him, it just strengthens the argument of him being
agreed.
Pick.
And like I said, for me, it's don't get me wrong, I love the points, but the points are because he's playing with Mikael Rantanen. And don't get me wrong, JT Compher is a very good player. But I just love that line that he's on. Also, he's damn good at faceoffs. Last night alone, he was 63% on faceoffs. Those are offensive faceoffs for the most part that he is going to be taking. That he's going to be getting the puck to Mikael Rantanen. Mikael Rantanen scores goals. That's what's happening. Like, he had 3 assists a couple of nights ago, 2 assists the night before that. Like, he is going to get some goals, but these are mainly going to be assists, boys. And I'm fine with that. I do. I like JT Compher a lot. And, you said he was at 35%. When I had put him down on here, he was at 33%. So he is going to be going up. Like, be aware. If you want to get in on it, you got to get in on it now, because if he continues, it's going to go up really quickly. This is not a secret. So go out and get him. Seriously, he is my number 1 streamer suggestion. He's just that good. They don't have the best schedule this week, but they have a pretty damn good schedule, and he is just, I think, the best player out there available right now, or widely available.
I mean, when it comes down to it, Colorado's got one of the best schedules going forward. Over the next 3 weeks, they've got some of the most games played, some of the most off nights. So I don't know. This one just feels like long-term hold right into the playoffs if you can.
For sure. I mean, I would have had him on my list as well. I just thought that would have been a little excessive, but
it's overkill. Yeah,
it would. He's that good.
Yeah, I think we could probably put him as our overall streamer of the week. But yeah, great call there. And like you said, the playoff schedule is even better for Colorado. So great hold. Tyler Seguin, I got on my list. He's 50%. Dallas has actually been sucking for about 10 games. Jamie Benn's been their leading scorer in the last couple of weeks, which oddly enough, he's been great all year. Just, it is that kind of year. I expected Seguin to have a bit of a bounce back. I think we all did, but turns out it was Ben who had the bounce back season. But
oh my God.
do
weird. Jamie Ben's having a revival
what's going
season.
on.
Eric Carlson. Like, it just feels like we got transported back to 2017.
It is. But what I do like is the classic Zach 3 games in 4 nights against essentially the bottom 3 teams. So Dallas has Vancouver, Arizona, and Chicago to start the week. So you could pick up Seguin for 3 games in 4 nights. You're going to get shots. It's one of those cold streaks that he's on where I feel like given those opponents, Seguin can still score. Right. So I think you go for that. You have no problem dropping him on the Thursday and picking up somebody else for the weekend. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the stat sheet, he's got 1 goal in his last 5 games. So he isn't overly impressive, but he is shooting. He does take faceoffs. He hits a little bit. And just I could score against those 3 teams. So.
My second guy is Tyler Bertuzzi, who's actually my streamer of the week. I think JT Compher is, Zach has him. He would be mine as well. But Tyler Bertuzzi, 24% rostered. You get those 5 games out of him. He's got 1 goal, 6 assists in his last 7. He's shooting over twice a game. He's getting top line, top power play, left wing, over 17 minutes a night. It was crazy to see Bertuzzi this low owned. I get it. He's coming back from injury and all that, but he's doing stuff, and he's good for PIMs. He'll give you some hits here and there too. So I like Bertuzzi this week.
I really don't want to talk about William Karlsson, but he is who I have next as my streamer suggestion. He's only 26% owned. That's because, he I don't know, he kind of sucks. But Vegas has a really good schedule, and he's not supposed to suck, is the thing. Like, you're not supposed to be this bad.
You like Riley Smith there at all?
We could go Riley Smith. I guess I would feel better about Riley Smith than William Karlsson, which isn't supposed to be the case. But I'm gonna stick with William Karlsson. He's gonna have a really good week, boys. Come on, do something cool. Who you got? Who's your last one, Raji?
My last one, he's a Zach guy. Troy Terry came back. He is quite owned. He's 55%, so he's more of a just go check. But he's scored in both games since he's come back. Anaheim's got another decent start of the week. They have 3 off nights, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday off nights. So again, you could drop him and pick somebody up for the weekend still. They've got Chicago, Washington, who's kind of semi-tanking, and Montreal. So their opponents stink. So perfect chance for him and Zegras to try to put up some points in these last few games here.
So I do like Riley Smith, left wing, right wing at 43%, 7 points in his last 10, shooting 2.5 times a game. But the guy I had here was William Carrier, who's 5% rostered. Left wing, got 8 points in his last 9 games. He's +7, 8 penalty minutes, 24 shots on goal, 17 hits, 3 blocks. That entire stat line is in his last 9 games. The downside is that he's seeing under 14 minutes a game as he plays that bottom 6 role player kind of thing. And we don't know what's going to happen with Vegas at the trade deadline if the hierarchy gets messed up and pushes Carrier down even more. But as he's playing right now, he's thriving. Nick Waugh also playing pretty good. He's doing face-off too, and he's dual eligible at 4%. So there's some deep cuts for you guys.
Yeah, Willie Carrier, 40-goal pace in the last couple weeks.
Right? He's doing it.
I don't know about all that business.
That's a good schedule this week.
I have a pair of Red Wings here as my last streamer suggestions because I can't help myself. So I got Robbie Fabry at 16%. I'm actually big on Robbie Fabry, especially this week with them having 5 games. But also Pia Suter. Pia Suter is a player that he's a player. He is a player. Yes, he is a player. But he's tri-eligible. He's only 1% owned, and he has actually been playing very well lately. You can't super see it on the score sheet, but I promise you, he's been playing well lately. With them having 5 games coming up here this week, I like the long shot idea of Pia Suter.
Can't believe you're going to talk shit on William Carrier and then talk about Pia Suter. He does have 5 goals in his last 7 games, but on 12 shots, this is weird. All right, just go checks. I got the Edmonton goalies. Edmonton's got a good schedule, but I don't like any of their forwards, so I'm just kind of throwing out there their goalie situation. Both of them around 60-70% owned, so just go check on him if you need some goalie stats.
Yeah, I went with the full obvious O'Reilly. He's at 64% as of last night. I see Yahoo hasn't updated their percentages since then, but I assume that'll be like 90 by today. But yeah, obviously check if O'Reilly's available, whether it's a sign and trade or a hold.
I'm going to go Bowen Byram here, probably at 65% owned. He has a 4-game point streak right now. And, you know, he's getting some really good extra chances with Makar out. Then I also have Ville Husso down at 81%. I know that's definitely high, but they got, you know, like I said, they have the 5 games coming up, and he's going to get the bulk of those starts. He's still available in 20% of leagues.
All right, moving into the banger suggestions. I already talked about William Carrier. He's got the riffs, and he's doing points at this time too. Raj, who do you got?
I got Paul. Welcome back, Cotter.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Barbashev's going to Vegas.
Oh, there we go. Trade deadline day. Well, there you go. He can play with Paul Cotter. 1% owned, 15-minute a night guy. He oddly has 3 goals in the last couple weeks as well. But he's just strictly a hitter. So if you need hits, that's what he does. Plus, he's also dual eligible, which is a bonus for a banger to be a dual eligible forward and still get you all those hits.
I went with Keegan Colasar here. I believe he's 4th in hits so far this year. He has a ton of them, but that's really what he does. You're not going to get too much else from Keegan Colasar, but you are going to get a ton of bangs. So I am all for that. You might sprinkle in, you know, a point every now and then, but you want a banger suggestion, he is straight bangs. That's all you're going to get, but you're going to get 4 of them again.
Since we're going all Vegas with our bangs here, you could throw in Braden McNabb as well. He's hits and blocks.
Moving into the goalie streamers. Raj, I see you like my Magnus Hellberg pick at 1% here. Detroit's got 2 back-to-backs, so I think he's going to get the softer of each set. You know, a double dose of Ottawa to start the week, and then you got the Islanders and Philly to end the week. Those are some good matchups for somebody at 1% roster that you can get 2 starts out of this week.
Yep, I'm on board for him for sure. He's got the 2 back-to-backs. Wedgwood could be another option. He's going to get a game, just 1 game probably, against either Chicago or Arizona. So that could be a good one as well.
And they have Evgeny Dadonov now, so they're like bulletproof.
There you go, right?
That's awesome.
Offensive juggernaut.
Oh, yeah. Watch out.
It just screams like Radulov 2.0.
I'm going Laurent Brossoit here. He's my goalie streamer. He's now down to 17% actually. Now they did lose last night to the Stars, but in all honesty, Laurent Brossoit played really well. You know, he had 41 saves on 43 shots. It's good for a 953. Yes, they lost, but he is playing well. So I am in for this Laurent Brossoit. So it's 17%. This makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, buddy. All right, streamer picks of the week. I already solidified my Tyler Bertuzzi pick here. And yeah, who do you guys got for your week-long ad?
JT Compher.
I just switched mine to JT Compher just because he's the real answer, and all of my picks stunk.
Yeah, he would be mine. Yeah. He would be mine too. So that's unanimous for JT Compher. All right, that is it for the week preview. We're going to have...
I do like Mike Amadio a lot.
No.
Does that count as something?
No. And we almost made it. We almost made it a whole episode without talking about Amadio. So close. So close. But we'll catch you later on in the week. And until next time, you guys can find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey, or you can find us in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. Until then, love yous.
Love it.
Yay, love yous.